Good evening, everybody. Today we're going to talk about probation violations. Probation violations are commonly associated with an arrest for someone who's been arrested previously. In my opinion, it's one of the reasons that people get caught in the system, as they say, as a probation violation can start a vicious cycle of repeated incarceration, back and forth trips between jails, prisons, courthouses, and can really delay someone receiving their day in court or their justice that they so deserve. So before we get into probation violations, let's really dive into probation just a little bit. What is probation? Why are people on probation? And is it as good of a deal as people oftentimes think it is? So anytime you are or someone you love is convicted of a crime, there is typically going to be a period of probation involved or included in the sentence that's received. For instance, for a misdemeanor, it's common to receive 12 months of misdemeanor probation. But today is more particularly about felony probation, and usually in a felony case, there is rarely what's called a straight sentence. So a straight time sentence would be if someone received, say, 2 years to serve, and they were sentenced to prison. They were to go to prison, serve 2 years, whether they're parole or not, that's up to the parole board. But after that 2 years is up, their sentence is complete. Those are exceedingly rare. Usually you see a sentence, whether it's straight probation, for instance, in a first-time life theft case of something with little value, you may have 5 years probation. But what we're really talking about here is something like a 10 to do 3 or a 10 to do 4. That's something that you would commonly hear, where the first 3 or 4 years is to be served on probation or parole, with the following 6 or 7 years to be served on probation. So what this means is that during that 6 or 7 years, you are going to be under the supervision of the Department of Community Supervision and your probation officer. And is it as good of a deal to be on probation as we think it is? Well, it is until or unless you get violated. And there are 3 particular ways in which you can violate probation. The first is a technical violation. The second is a violation of a special condition of probation. And the third is a substantive violation. We'll start first with technical violations. A technical violation occurs when you violate a general condition of probation. Now, there are many, if you will, general conditions of probation, but this you can view this, for instance, as failure to report, or perhaps you leave the state without telling your probation officer. Here in Georgia, if you're in Carroll County, one turn down a wrong road, you might end up in Alabama. Those kind of violations can result in up to 2 years of your probation being revoked. So if you got a 10-4, you did your time, you got out, you're in year 6, well, guess what? The judge can send you away to prison for 2 years, and then when you get out, you still got to finish those next 2 years of probation. So those are the punishments you face for a violation of a general condition of probation. Next is, and this is the big one, a violation of a special condition of probation. Why do they call them special conditions of probation? Because the punishments, if you violate them, are especially bad. If you violate a special condition of probation, the judge can sentence you to serve the rest of your term of probation in prison. So, if you get a 20 to do 2 on an ag assault, and you think that 2 is a great deal, and maybe it is, depending on your case, who knows, maybe it's not. What you have to realize is you're going to be what's called on paper for 18 years. If you do your 2 years, and in year 5, you violate a special condition, the judge can send you to prison for 15 years on that original charge. That's a lot of time, serious consequences, and that's why they're special conditions. So what are some examples of special conditions? There's quite a few. One is a failure to pay restitution. If you're ordered to pay restitution, whether it's a theft case or an ag assault with medical bills or anything like that, then you must pay restitution. You'll be ordered to pay restitution by Georgia courts. And if you fail to pay that, that's a violation of a special condition of probation. Something as small as attending 12-step meetings, or contacting a victim in a case that you're not supposed to have any contact with, or failure to Failure to complete an accountability court. That's big nowadays. Accountability courts are popular. That might be a special condition, and if you violate, you may be sent to prison for the rest of your time. Excuse me. Finally, there's substantive violation of probation. This is when you catch a new charge. So when you catch a new charge while you're on probation, you got a new fight. You got two fights to fight. You got to fight the probation front and the old charge and the new charge front. If those are in separate jurisdictions, things can get even hairier. And you've really got to be careful on how you resolve these cases and in what order you approach these things. Because listen, if you resolve a new case, if you get arrested for something small, a misdemeanor marijuana, which that's a little different, but let's say a felony drug charge or something like that, and you decide, oh, I'll plea this out quick and then go handle my probation revocation. Anything you do or admit or plead to can be used against you in that probation revocation. So it is exceptionally important that you plan these things, that you strategize these things, and that you have an attack plan when you go to fight all of these charges. So how do you go to jail just because your PO says you violated probation? Well, no. You are entitled to a hearing on a probation violation. The hearing is a little different than a trial. So at a trial, the state's got to prove your guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. That's a burden that's really high. All right? You get the right to a jury trial on your charges. Probation revocations aren't like that. The burden for the state is 50-50. Flip a coin. If the prosecutors can convince the judge that it's more likely than not that you violated probation, guess what? It's over. You violated. Judge hears it, adjudicates it, all of a sudden you're revoked to prison or jail for a long time possibly. The other big difference is you're not entitled to a jury trial. The judge will hear your probation revocation hearing. The judge will hear it, the burden's lower, and the stakes can be extremely high. Now, at these hearings, you do have some rights. You got a right to have a lawyer with you. You got a right to bring witnesses to court. You can question the state's witnesses, all of those things. You can get on the stand and testify. You can tell the judge your story. So you do still have rights when it comes to a probation hearing. So, big takeaways are, in a substantive violation, you got to be careful what the order is. Okay? You got to be careful how you resolve it. Special conditions of probation are special for a reason. The consequences can be extremely serious, and you can serve the rest of your overall sentence in prison. Technical violations, they're the easiest ones to violate. You don't think it's a big deal because you don't show up to your PO one day. You don't get in touch with him. Your car's broke down. It's cold. You're running late to work. Something. No excuse. You got to go see your PO. You got to talk to your PO. You got to communicate with your PO. We've got to avoid probation violations, okay? I hate going into court and seeing how many people are on for a probation revocation. Probation is not easy. Probation is not fun. And you got to be very careful before you accept a sentence with an extended period of probation. So, always feel free to give us a call. Check us out, J. Ryan Brown Law. We're here in downtown Noonan, jryanbrownlaw.com. You can find out all kinds of information about probation violations. Thank you.